Good afternoon, Paul Winder from Residential Estates, trying to give another little short video on HMOs this time. HMOs have always been popular, for whatever reasons. That's people buying them, converting them, then selling to release cash, converting, and then retaining, or people just buying up and running HMOs. And recently there's been a new sort of kid on the block, so you've got your standard HMO that is let out to, let's say, a 5-bed, 5 individual tenants. So you are the owner of the property and you have 5 different ASTs with 5 different tenants. And that's a standard HMO. But now there are HMOs where you actually, the tenant is a housing association or a charity. So your agreement is with them and they are then responsible for filling the rooms. But the difference is that association, let's call it company, give you a fixed amount for a certain amount of time. So unlike a standard HMO where you potentially have to find new tenants every so often, where you have void periods, you don't have that. You get a set amount per month for a period of years. Now the good thing about these is they are offering a service for people who are struggling probably to find properties of their own. Sometimes they're classed as vulnerable, but that is a misleading word, because they're just people who probably need an address to get started. You know about that revolving circle about people struggling to get something because they haven't got an address. So they offer a sort of a starting point, if you like, and they are much needed now. Obviously, with house prices what they are and rents what they are, these are affordable alternatives for associations, housing associations or charities to offer this type of property. They're usually backed by the government. And these are what I'd call them attached to a lease HMOs. And I want to talk about the difference between the two, because they are actually both pretty similar in a way. The good thing about a HMO is that they are comparable. So if you had one that's attached to a lease and then didn't carry on with the lease if it was often, and then let it out on a standard HMO, you're probably going to get the same sort of returns. So there's no change in the property price, there's no change in the returns, but there are some differences that you've got to allow for, and it's just a matter of what suits you best. So you have got the same price, like I mentioned, but if you look at some of the things with a standard HMO, if you look at the things like yield, that can increase or decrease. With a fixed term, it stays the same. Rent increase over 5 years, yes, of course, it's possible with rents as they are in a standard HMO. They're fixed for a fixed term. Utility costs and the fluctuation. So as you know, with a HMO, it's about incomings and outgoings. So utility costs have obviously gone up, which has meant that people with up and running HMOs have probably been less profitable because their outgoings have been more. With an attached to a yield with a company, that's covered. So that is not your concern. Is it possible to add value? Yeah, with a standard HMO, of course it is. You can upgrade it to get a higher rent. With a fixed yield, it's not. Void periods, obviously there's a possibility on a standard HMO. There is always going to be, whether that's changeovers, one tenant moving out, taking a couple of weeks to get one back in, just to avoid upkeep of a room. So of course you've potentially got to allow for void periods. With a fixed term, you don't. There are no voids. You get paid every month regardless. It's their job to fill it. Management costs usually stay the same if you've got a third party management. But with a standard HMO, again, they can go up. Something else you don't have to worry about in a fixed term, that they will stay the same. No change, you're not responsible for that. Standard internal repairs and cosmetic features. With a standard HMO, they're your responsibility. With a fixed term, they're not. Major repairs, boiler upkeep, external, it's your responsibility for both of them. It's your house that you're letting out at the end of the day. White goods, usually covered under warranty for both. Exit strategy is the same as all HMOs. Now, generally with a standard HMO, you get the same or a slightly higher net return on your purchase price. But this is where the balance is, because obviously if you've got one that we're going to be marketing soon, you're guaranteed £1,500 every month for the next 5 years, which equates to £90,000 over 5 years. Out of that, you've got your insurance and nothing else. End of. Now, and that works out, I think it's around about an 8.25% return on 217,500 purchase price. You have no worries out of that. I guess your only worry is if something goes wrong with the association you tender with, but again, you've got your backup of a standard HMO after that. Now, on a standard HMO, you could potentially get a little higher net return, but what you've then got to take into account is the fluctuations. You've got to keep on top of that. So you've got a balance between potentially, well, you've got a few options. If you carry on putting your rents up as rents are going up, then you could increase your yields. If rents go up and utility costs go up, that probably balances itself out to get the same. If you don't put your rents up and utility costs go up, then your yields are going to come down. And then you got to look at the void situation. So the only way you can have no voids on a standard HMO is you've got the same tenant in for 5 years in every room. Most HMO landlords I know cater for 1 month per year as a void period per room. Now over 5 years that works out to, I think it's 25 months that you're looking for a void period. So you've got to work out the actual rent that you're getting. Is it the same as getting a fixed yield? And again, they work out generally at the end of the time the same. But then voids could be down or could be up, so there's a little bit more fluctuation involved with it, I guess. So all in all, they both do offer something very, very strong. There are going to be some figures on here in a minute, which and I will have available, which will show that if you increase your rents by 5% per year, every year on a standard HMO, take into the accounts the void, then you're probably coming out with just over £90,000, I would have thought. Whereas on the fixed return, you are getting the £90,000. So one, profitability wise, is not that much better than the other. They're both pretty good. It's just deciding how much you want involvement with, and if you want to see that the fun of seeing it going up, etc., or if you believe utility costs are coming down, etc., or just say, well, you know what, I'm happy knowing I'm going to get a 40% return on my purchase price investment over 5 years, and then probably get a renewed lease at the end of the day, and sort of say, right, okay, I'm happy with that. What I will say is, from a mortgage lending front, it's probably slightly harder to get one as it stands on one with a fixed lease, because the lending companies sort of think, right, okay, well, what happens if you don't pay your mortgages now? At the end of the day, you're getting a fixed income, so why aren't you going to be doing it? That's not the case. But they'll just look at it, if you are, they're tied into a lease then, and they don't really retain property. But that's starting to show. There are plenty of lenders out there who look at it. As long as there's a decent break clause in it, and then they're fine, which is something we negotiate on your behalf. So that's just a little idea. With some things, when they're attached to these 25-year things, I'm not really that keen on them, just because they're usually paying over the price for the asset. With a HMO, you don't have an asset value, you have a yield value, which I've explained in a previous video. So I hope that makes it clear. It's a big market, and they offer steady return, and you can certainly do worse than either a standard HMO or a fixed return HMO. One just gives you, I guess, it's like everything, one gives you security, the other one potentially gives you a little bit more, but also comes with potentially giving you a little bit less. And it's just whether your knowledge or how your strategy works to which one suits you. But what we do at residential estates, what we inherently try and do is make sure that whatever we bring you is fully up and running, fully tenanted, has got a good history, that all the leases are correct if it's with an association, and then we offer it out to you, and that's then for you to decide if that's your bag when it comes to property investment or not. Thanks for listening. My name is Paul Winder, Development and Acquisition Manager, with 20 years experience in the business, so I hope at this stage I know what I'm talking about. Thank you.